Growing up, my mom told me if I could dream it, I could do it. She filled our home with music, creativity, and books. She instilled in me for a very long time that if I wanted it, I could have it. From the beginning, I was drawn to loud versions of expression. I liked loud colors, shiny things, and high heels, even though I couldn't actually wear them, and my mom encouraged that in me. From the beginning, I remember wanting to go to schools like Pratt and Parsons and NYU, and I was going to. Had every intention. And then I grew up, and I realized those schools are $70,000, $80,000 a year, and it was never going to be something that I could manage on my own. I remember telling my mom about it, that I wasn't looking there anymore, and I was researching schools in Texas, and I remember how disappointed she was. She never wanted me to give up because of money. So when I began researching schools in Texas, I stumbled upon SHSU and their fashion merchandising program. I discovered it was only going to cost, I say only, it was going to cost around $18,000 my first year. That's a lot of money. I decided while talking to my parents when we were discussing financing what my options were. They told me they were in this weird middling tax bracket where I don't qualify for a lot of loans and grants. So I decided early on I was going to have to work. I got my first job when I was 16. I worked at Bahama Bucks. Don't know if y'all have ever been there. I shoveled snow cones all summer on weekends, weekdays until I was 18 years old. I saved up close to $10,000, which I thought at the time was a lot of money. I was very, very proud of myself. I started, when I got into SAM, I looked at my first payment notice. It was close to $10,000, so I ended up giving my whole savings account for my first semester. So that $10,000 didn't really make a dent. While going through this process, it was really hard, and my parents really, really, really wanted to contribute as much as they could, but without the prospect of grants or decent loans, there wasn't a whole lot they could do. They just tried their best to make up the difference. I qualified for Parent Plus loans, and my parents told me very early on that they could not handle the financial burden that came along with that. So when I went off to work, I knew that was pretty much all I was going to be able to do. From the beginning, we're told that college is our time. It's our time to figure out what we love, what we hate, fall in love 3 or 4 times, and then fall out of it. Try 6 classes that have nothing to do with your major just because they look interesting. You're supposed to figure out what you want in 4 years. Because when you walk that stage, you're supposed to know exactly where you want to be when you leave. It's stressed to us by our professors, our mentors, our teachers, our parents. And that's not a lot of time. It feels like a lot of time, but it's not. My mom wanted to make sure that when I went off to Huntsville, that I was socially integrating into the campus life. So she signed me up for something that's called Bearcat Camp. Anybody ever heard of that? I did not want to go. I hate being outside, not to be stereotypical. I'm a fashion major. I didn't like sports. At high school, no sports. I didn't do sports. I didn't want to be outside in the heat with mosquitoes for 72 hours. I wasn't sure if there was AC, so that was just not for me. When I went, my mom had to pull me by my hair into the car and then throw me on the bus that took us to Riverside. I sat in the back. I didn't talk to a single soul. I was very, very unhappy being there. But when you're 18, you're pretty much overall unhappy. So when I was on the bus, I had my headphones in, and everybody starts running to the cabins. I was like, I'm not running. I'm walking. So I couldn't figure out why they were running. Apparently, nobody wants a top bunk at camp. When you're on the bottom, it moves when people sleep. So you're on the top and you're shaking and moving all over the place. So I was the last person into the cabins. So I got the weird one in the corner with the spiders. It was great. I couldn't manage to make my bed on my own, and I was really struggling. And I'm making all these noises and I'm crying because I'm 18. And this girl just walks up to me. She says absolutely nothing and just starts helping me make my bed. And then goes, "Hi, my name's Morgan King," after we had finished. And that girl has been my best friend for 3 years. Don't know what I would have done without her in college. And for the next 72 hours, we spent it outside in the heat with the mosquitoes. And it was probably the most fun I had ever had, ever. So we learned about SHSU traditions. We played sports. I sported. Um, and I sweated, and it was great. And it was such a great experience that I came back as a counselor. So that is what I did going into sophomore year. I was a fish camp counselor, and it was so much fun. I learned so much about myself. I learned how to be a leader. I learned how to be loud. I learned how to be proud of exactly who I was, and I was around the most amazing, incredible people. And that summer, I also met my other best friend and my boyfriend. We've been dating for 3 years now, so that was really great. Thank you, Bearcat Camp. And it was a great experience. And then COVID happened. Yeah, that was fun. Yeah. So I didn't get to go back junior year because we were doing this weird hybrid situation. So camp was kind of weird. I also ran out of money because I got laid off during COVID layoffs for about 4 to 5 months. So I had no money to go back to school. So I got a job, and I got 2, actually. I waited tables at one place and waited tables somewhere in Woodlands. It doesn't matter where it was. They don't like me there that much. So I worked about 72 hours, and I saved up money so that I could go back in the fall. It was really hard because I had to drop camp. I had to drop all my student organizations because I no longer had time for a social life. I pretty much had time to study, kind of, and work. Sometimes I slept, I occasionally ate, not that often. It was kind of terrible, and it really sucked. So with all of that, my question is, why did I have to give it up? Why can't a middle-class family receive any forms of grants, scholarships, or loans that won't leave you $30,000 in debt? I'm so tired of people telling me it's normal. It's not normal. You shouldn't have to graduate with $30,000 worth of debt to have the privilege of having a halfway decent job. It stinks. It's a lot of money, and I wanted to be successful. I didn't want to have to be worried about interest loans piling up until I was 40. So I worked, and I think I got robbed of a lot of great college experiences, and I gave up on the traditional college experience to work. In the United States, 40% of undergraduate students drop out. 38% drop out due to financial pressures, and 30% drop out before their sophomore year. That's a huge number, guys, big number. And it's a number that hasn't decreased that much in the past 10 years. It's a number that should try to be avoided. I get that schools need money to run. They need it to keep freshmen coming back. It costs a lot of money to keep the lights on. The money has to come from somewhere. That's not the problem. When you're a freshman, it's even more expensive. I don't know if you recall, but you had to pay for a dorm and a meal plan. And you really did try to eat your way through $1,800 worth of food every semester. And your dorm was small, but you socially integrated into college. It's a good thing. I firmly believe it. I was an RA. I understand why it's important. Totally get it. But it's expensive, and it comes with financial consequences. I was raised to believe that college was a privilege and not a right. But if it's a privilege, then why has it become an expectation? I'm going through jobs and looking into what I can do after I graduate, because I got 6 weeks to figure that out. Haven't figured it out yet, guys. But I'm looking at different qualifications for what I can do when I leave and what I qualify for and what I don't. And turns out, in entry-level fashion jobs, you have to have a college degree. They don't say it needs to be in fashion or business or whatever. It could be in animal science, I don't know. But they want you to have a college degree. We have made high school educations completely obsolete. And now the basic level of education to have a decent job with medical insurance and dental insurance, and I heard a 401k is important, so one of those is a undergraduate degree. That's insane. But an undergraduate degree is not obtainable without loans and grants and family help. It's just not. If you have to work 72 hours a week, you're not putting in the time to study and take care of yourself. Therefore, you're not learning anything. You're just learning how to not fail. So it just blows my mind that is what everything has come down to. I need a piece of paper, but I can't afford the piece of paper. So if we're raising the bar as a society for what the basic level of education is, then the financial aspect needs to meet that. It can't be $8,000 a semester for you to get an education when not everybody can afford that on their own. State and federal governments need to curb the rising rate of what a college education costs. We need better access to grants and loans that don't have crazy high interest rates so that we can be successful when we walk across that stage in 4 years. Now that I'm an intern at Fossil, it's pretty cool. I get a 70% off discount, guys. I'm a big fan, and it's definitely been put to use. I know how miserable I was then. I don't live in Huntsville anymore. I live in Dallas. It's pretty not that bad. For someone that's raised in Galveston, you're like raised to believe that Dallas is horrible in comparison to Houston. It's really not. There's a lot of cool things to do. And I'm so much happier because it's over, and that shouldn't have been my college experience, and I don't wish that on anybody. Money's complicated, I get it, but we have to be able to talk about it amongst educators, parents, students, policymakers, politicians, so that we can get the college degree and the college experience that we so rightfully deserve. Thank you.